We have a couple of attendees joined, so yeah, we can get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being a part of our sixth virtual event organized by Women Who Test Bangalore chapter. I'm Shruti, the chapter leader for Women Who Test Bangalore and your host. I'm working as a senior test engineer with Trigent. Talking about Trigent, Trigent is a 25-year-old technology company that enables business to embrace their digital future. It helps clients overcome their limits by leveraging the technology. Recently, it was selected as the finalist for two categories at the prestigious North American Software Testing Awards 2020. Talking about our today's webinar. Today we are excited to have Rahul Verma with us to speak about the bell bottoms and beyond. The talk is about the present clues for the bittersweet future. AI fiction may become a fact in the future, but Rahul insists that we must be more concerned about AI today. This webinar will discuss the evolution of artificial intelligence and its implications for the software industry. It is a primer on how AI will change the role of software developers and testers in the coming year. Talking about Rahul, Rahul is an entrepreneur with many hats. He is the founder of TestMile and head of the test automation department and at Trending Technology Services Germany. He is a thought leader in the testing world. He is well known for his independent views in the community. And he is also the creator of Arjuna, a free open source tool, Python-based modern test automation framework. Thank you for joining us, Rahul.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Rahul, that's all. The forum is for you now. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Bringing this topic to a testing audience, I'm always a bit skeptical of how useful it is going to be. So I would try to tailor make this talk as much as possible. So I would extend a hand forward to you. You'll need to extend a hand forward to me. Just keep your minds open and let's see what's in play for us. Before we get started with the talk, with the presentation, so you must have heard the story of frog in the well. So here's a little twist to that. So let's talk about the story of three frogs and three wells. So there's this consultant who always brings news of change. Maybe there's a vested interest. There's always a vested interest, right, when it comes to consultants and marketing people. So this crow has a story that things are changing. The wells are going to dry up. So this whole comfort zone in which the frogs are living is not going to be there. So he goes to frog number one, well number one, and relates the story. Things are changing. AI, this digital stuff, machine learning, and all these big terms. The world is going to change. And this frog says, no, I'm very well here. I haven't seen any such change happening. This well is so beautiful, good. My grandparents also lived here. Nothing has changed. So the frog chooses not to change anything. So the crow goes to the next well, talks to the same BS to the next frog. And the frog says, oh my God, these things are going to be really scary for me. This well is going to dry up, and becomes really, really afraid of all this news and hops out of the well and just goes out in search of whatever change this is going to be. And the story of this frog is always about hopping from one well to another, hopping from one place to another without ever thinking about where he or she currently is. The crow relates the same story to the third frog in the well, and the frog says, okay, there is some value in what the crow is saying. There's value because things change, things always do. But this well is sufficient enough even now. It is serving my needs. So chooses to stay in the well, but whenever finds time goes out and explores that, okay, I need to keep a tab on what things are changing. So when the time comes, I can make the shift. I can do the hopping. Question for you. And you don't need to answer this question. So it's not for this webinar format to answer this question. This question is for you to answer internally. Which of these three frogs do you think survived? Take a minute. The frog who didn't change anything, the frog who changed everything and kept changing, the frog who kept a tab on the change, but didn't change out of fear. Which of these frogs do you think survived? So this is a question I would leave you with once you go back. Answer is no one. None of the frogs survived. Because that's how life is. Nobody survives. Everybody dies at the end. So the frog number 1 also died. The frog number 2 also died. The frog number 3 also died. Because that's what we are here for. We die. So it's not a question of dying. So is it a question of survival? Everybody survives. So it's not a question of survival also. Frog 1 survived and died. Frog 2 survived and died. Frog 3 survived and died. So what the hell this story is about? Why am I discussing this? Because it's not a question of dying. It's not a question of survival. It's a question of how the survival looks like. Till whatever time the frogs are alive, how do they live? That's the question. Frog number 1, who doesn't care? Frog number 2, who keeps hopping out of fear? Or frog number 3? The story of the survival for these three frogs is going to be extremely different from each other. And that's where it becomes relevant to us. So it was introduced that this talk is about AI, but this is not that AI talk. This is not a talk on AI actually, because I'm fed up of those talks. Because everywhere there is this fear. You go to a conference, there's a lot of talk of AI and machine learning and what impact it would have on jobs, and everybody suddenly becomes afraid. And you go to LinkedIn, you go to Facebook, you go to Quora, everywhere there is this fear mongering going on. Fear sells. Fear sells better than anything else. So this is not a presentation on fear. This presentation tackles the idea that what are we afraid of? If a tester today says to me that he or she is afraid of AI because otherwise he or she would lose his or her job, I find this statement nonsensical for the simple reason that we have not earned the right to be afraid of such a big thing. If we really are afraid about our jobs, it's because we have not respected testing. It is because we don't feel dignified as testers. It's because we have screwed up our fundamentals. Even today, people don't know basic test design techniques, programming, design skills. These are the reasons we would lose our jobs, not AI. Think about an ant, small ant, and looks at a lion and says that lion is his or her enemy. It's laughable, isn't it? Because lion should be afraid of maybe a wasp, a small, little bigger insect than it, not AI, not the lion. So this kind of self-appreciative fear doesn't work for me. So I'm going to discuss basic facts, the basic changes. I'm not an AI person. I'm going to talk about basic changes, critical changes which are happening around us and nobody's talking about them, whether it is development forums, whether it is testing forums. So I would bring those realities forward to you, and I would urge that keep a tab on them, because those are the things which are changing in a concrete way around us. Okay, AI and ML, yes, you need to think about them, but they are a step further away from them. So let's get started. So this whole thing of AI, one day AI reality would beat AI fiction. That is true. But then who am I to talk about AI, right? So it's not a fashion statement for me that without knowing of AI, I just for the sake of presenting, I keep talking of AI. I'm not a marketing brochure. I'm a living person. So I would like to talk about things which I know better. And especially when I present in a testing forum, it should be about truth. It should not be about selling oneself. So I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to present facts and figures. Yeah. So AI talk should be done by people who have really done AI, not by people who understand importance of AI or things are changing or all these business talks. Those talks are not valuable at all. They don't deliver anything to you. If a person has to talk about artificial intelligence, this person must have worked in AI for some years, and those people are rare to find. I'm not that person, so I'm not going to waste your time. And I'm a poet, so whenever I do this futuristic projections, the problem about futuristic projections is most of them they go wrong. So listen to me with a pinch of salt. Maybe you find some truth in it, and in case you're empathetic towards that truth, try to bring some change in the way you're working and what you're working on today. Let's look at this big graphic. and the reality of all of us. So this big circle is that big world, and then within that there is this, let's say, IT hub, and then within that there's an organization where you work, let's say Trigent or any other organization. Within that there is a department, within that there is a department, within that you are the small person who's creating so much noise. Yeah. Look at this figure and try to understand your real worth. Okay, I'm not a motivational speaker, so I'm not going to talk bullshit about self-worth. Okay, all of us are worthy, but we don't need to be reminded of that. And every time we can't shoo away from our responsibilities just by talking of self-worth. This is the real self-worth. We are the small cog wheel in small cog in this all wheels of things, right? And the problem with being so small is that whatever changes they happen around us at so many layers, all of them, they boil down and impact us. So unless we are ourselves doing something very, very concrete and useful, we cannot create a ripple which impacts these layers back. Okay. Some of us might create ripples in our 2-3 person circle. Some of us create little bigger ripples. But unless we are doing something concrete without bullshitting, we are not going to create any ripple. Okay. So those who talk of change and bringing this change, that ripple, the least ripple which we should be creating is within ourselves. And that can happen if we value testing in its proper way. We keep a tab on these bigger ripples around us. And that's what this presentation is about in its true nature. So look at testing. What do you do as a tester? With all these terms and terminologies which are created for us since decades, because that's what testing world has done, right? For everything we create a term. We do nothing about it, but we create a term for it. And then we debate about it. And then we ask interview questions about it. So if this is going to be the style of working, we are not ready for future. We have not earned the right to talk about AI and machine learning, all these buzzwords. What do we do as a tester? If you're doing exploratory testing, scripted testing, test automation, wherever you are in the world, whatever is your style of testing, you do 5 things. Those 5 things are listed here. This is a testing model which I use. You can pick it up. I have not given it a name or anything, but this defines what I do as a tester, whatever work I do. Assumptions. Whether those assumptions are from documents, whether those assumptions are from talking to people, whether you work in agile model, whether you work in waterfall model, whatever. The first stage for a tester is assuming assumptions. You make assumptions about the behavior of things, behavior of software, behavior of API, behavior of a single unit of testing, whatever it is. Yeah. Those assumptions give you expectations, that what do you expect from the software? Yeah. Now, when you start testing, you interact with that piece of software. It could be hardware, it could be software, it could be whatever small unit, big unit, very large software, whatever it is. To test it, you need to interact with it. Yeah. And it takes usually more than one interaction. And then you observe, how did the software or hardware respond to your interactions? Those observations you assert against with respect to the expectations which you had. This is basic model of testing. Whatever form of testing you do, whether you write code for it, whether you do it in a human way, doesn't matter, or a combination there. This is the model you do. Now, the thing is that we keep all this noise about artificial intelligence and machine learning, but think practically. Let's say AI comes in its natural form, machine learning comes in its natural form. What would you be doing as a tester? Yeah, there's a product which uses AI. There would be very, very few testers, maybe 1 out of 1 million, 2 out of 2 million, who would really implement AI. Others would be users of it. So there's a tool which uses AI. You are still clicking buttons and adding some information here and there and maybe writing some code for it. So you would not be impacted by AI. Okay. So please come out of that loop of whatever discussions are going on there. Keep yourself apprised of it. We need to keep apprised, but believe me, and it's already 4 or 5 years that people are talking of AI, but has your work really changed with it? No. We were doing poor testing in basic software, and now we are doing poor testing in AI enabled software, and that's the reality. We need to change this equation if we really want to create a difference, and if we really want to create a ripple which impacts us and people around us. So please keep this in mind. So that's the reason I don't choose to talk about these bigger stuff. I choose to talk about concrete stuff which needs our attention. Okay. So let's talk about bell bottoms. So I'll come to this word, why bell bottoms, why this choice of title. But let's look at some concrete things which are changing around us, and we are not talking about them. Yeah, I haven't heard any other talk in any testing conference which is even touching upon these technologies. I don't know the reason. So let's talk about some trends from 2, 3, 4 years. This presentation itself was developed some years back, and some of these things have already become concrete since then. In browser client-side coding. So we talk about JavaScript. JavaScript has sort of jumped in as a large, big, everywhere, omnipresent technology in the browsers. Its fate is more like Perl. Perl was a language which was made to do more than it was capable of. And same thing is happening with JavaScript. And that's how TypeScript as a language was also born, because JavaScript is limited in its nature. And it becomes really tricky to read and write JavaScript code beyond a certain point. And the core point is that JavaScript is an interpreted language. So it has its own performance limitations as well. And with all these applications of today, where client-side logic in browser processing is becoming heavier and heavier and heavier, interpreted languages are. This is changing fast. WASM enables running, for example, C code in browser or C++ code in browser, and it is supported by all major browsers today. Okay, so please keep your tab on it, because for any kind of heavier applications like image processing or these kind of, and we are talking of AI and ML. And one thing I've asked from a lot of people in the conferences, developers, architects also, or AI people, ML people also, that why do you assume that AI and ML is going to be only on the server side? The moment you bring these heavier technologies, heavier processing things in the browser, that there is an AI and ML which takes place within the body of application when it runs in the browser, the client side, JavaScript is not the answer for that. You need compiled code because it runs faster. It is more efficient. Yeah. So keep WASM on radar, and because of the nature of it. So today, this DOM inspection which you do or other kind of tests which you write, it is heavily dependent on the JavaScript nature of things or interpreted things. The debugging happens in a certain way. This would change the way applications behave on client side. It would have a change on the tooling. It would have a change on the way you test, especially a little below the layer of black box tests. It is going to impact. So keep this technology on the radar. See if and where the applications start using it in your case. So this is one tech which you should keep in radar. Point to note here, it is compiled, and I'll come back to this point later. The second thing, the change. Everywhere you see today, if you look around, we talk of text, text, and text. The protocol of communication is text, HTTP. The code which we write, the way it works is textual, not binary, really. The way information is exchanged between applications is text. And the problem with text is it is bulky. And anytime you have to send a picture with it, a video with it, any kind which has a binary format, it goes through the cycle of encoding and decoding. Okay, that's how you attach a picture in Facebook, for example. It goes through base64 encoding and decoding. So this text and text and text has happened because the recent developments in tech have been about human orientation, that let's make it easy for the humans, the developers, the debuggers and whatnot. Okay, but this trend is changing. First was compiled code within browser. That's a change, supported by all browsers now. Second change is information exchange format. You can do a digging around this also. We started with, it used to be binary. Okay, it used to be binary earlier. Then XML, HTML, these came into being, and now JSON. Yeah, JavaScript objects. You see JSON is the exchange format everywhere. In IoT also, at many places they are using JSON. This is yes. So these new formats, if you look at protobuf, flatbuf, Apache Thrift, which are increasingly used by more and more companies out there, these are again binary exchange formats. Okay, earlier it used to be, for example, serialization of objects in Java, so you need the same technology on both sides. But in this case, one technology, let's say you can dump an object in Python and on the other side Java can load it. So this cross technology, cross language serialization is the new thing which is happening. And these three tech, and there would be more, these are just three names which are extremely popular today, and companies are already using it. So if you're a tester and you are so used to testing text formats, how would you test these kind of services, and which are increasing in number when they come your way? Because you don't deal with binary at all. You don't know what is binary packing. You don't know what is binary unpacking. You don't know about signed, unsigned ends. You don't know about little endian, big endian packing, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So keep a tab on this. This tech is increasing. Protobuf, Flatbuf, Apache Thrift, these are some names. So look at information exchange formats. Don't assume that it is going to be JSON always, or XML always, or human readable always. Okay, so you need to get conversant with binary editing, because that's how your test data would be. Okay. Third change, HTTP is a text protocol. It's the protocol of the web, and these changes have also happened already. HTTP2 is binary, HTTP3 is binary, and gRPC, remote procedure call by Google. So this is also binary protocol. So the protocols are changing fast. The protocols of the web are changing fast. Your web sockets, again, binary. All this stuff is changing around you, and our testing methods are so much dependent on seeing the text. People who test at that layers, that let me get down from black box testing at UI layer, let me do API testing. But in API, what do? It's text. So you're still dealing text and text and text because it's easier to debug, but text is never efficient when it comes to protocols or it comes to packets, and people have realized it. And that's how it used to be decades back. We changed it to text, and now we are changing text back to binary. And that's happening in many organizations. That's happening in many products now. So keep a tab on these newer protocols. It is going to change the way, especially people who are doing deeper testing, performance testing, security testing, API level testing. It's going to change everything. Apart from the testing core fundamentals, the tech stack is completely changing. So keep your tab on this, please. Languages for creating services. So Python became extremely popular in this space, and Java and other languages are very bulky. But again, Python is an interpreted language. So I know of many organizations, for example, they have moved away from Python for microservices also. They are moving to, again, what? Compiled languages. Go is extremely popular, Golang as we call it, Rust by Mozilla. So these are two languages, please watch out for. These are compiled languages, new generation compiled languages. They look like scripting languages, but they generate compiled code. And this is again for performance reasons and concurrency and asynchronicity for which these are being built. Okay, so watch out for these, please. And that's why I call them bell bottoms, because if you look at decades back, this is how it used to be. People used to talk about binary stuff, compiled languages, concurrency, asynchronicity, M2M. Machine to machine was the focus, not M to H. Humans were not really given that much focus. But then things changed. Everybody was about, oh, let's make it easy for human. Let's make it easy for human. Nobody thought of performance and security implications of that. And now we landed here. And now that we are realizing back, we are moving back to where we used to be with newer advanced technology. But you see, this is bell bottoms. They were bell bottoms, and now we have palazzo. Same stuff, different colors, but new marketing. Okay, so watch out for bell bottoms. We are moving towards some of the technology things which used to be there decades back, and they are coming again in front of us. So we are not really moving forward in a sense. We are actually moving backward in a sense. When we said that earlier developers, for example, used to do testing, yeah, And then we said, no, there is value in independent testing. And then Agile came and said developers should do their testing. And we said, this is a step forward. I'm sorry to say, but this is not a step forward. We are stepping backwards from where we started. That developers can do their testing. So this is this wheel. This would keep moving. Choice is yours. Which frog do you want to be? Because this is business need. This is the environment around you. New technology, some of it is new with new infrastructure, hardware possibilities, new possibilities arise. But thematically, philosophically, many of these things are actually age old. And we are just trying the same thing over. And it starts the same vicious circle again. Developers do their testing in Agile. We experimented with Agile for some years. And now again, there is place of testers in Agile. This would keep coming and going back because ground realities are not changed. Ground problems, real problems are not being solved. So in the noise of AI and ML, my fear is that these core tech changes which are happening around us, which we should be ready for, we are not preparing ourselves for that, and that is dangerous. So the question is that how is it all of this relevant for testers? See, most testers, they don't know about binary packing and parsing, and whatever I talked about is binary. So without the skill in place, most of the testers are going to feel out of place. They are, or maybe they would do shallow testing, which doesn't help. And those jobs where shallow work is done are replaceable. And yes, in such case, you should be afraid of your jobs. I should be afraid of my job also. If this is the only shallow layer of work I do, because that is replaceable. Anybody can do that. A machine can easily do that. Most testers use interpreted or higher level scripting languages. You pick the skill set today, C, C++ is gone. Compiled language skill set is gone today. Okay, very less testers actually know compiled languages, but you see the shift towards programming languages, it's moving towards compiled. Most testers write code which is not thread safe. You look at your Selenium code, people use these static methods everywhere and then say one thread is accessing, other one is also launching the same browser because people don't know basic thread locals in Java, for example. That's how the test code looks like. And then null pointer exceptions arise, and then blaming Selenium for null pointer exceptions. All this BS happens in our industry. But the core fundamental problem is thread safe code is somehow alien code to most testers. This problem is not solved. So on one side, we talk of machine learning, AI, but the fundamentals of programming, the programming concepts are not in place. And this is that, when I said we have not earned the right to be afraid, that's what I mean by it. That we should need to get our fundamentals, core stuff in place before we start talking in terms of buzzwords. And then test engines themselves, JUnit, PyUnit, any of the test engines you pick up, they are not asynchronous by design. And most of the tech, if you look at Ajax, for example, in browsers or today's microservices, they are asynchronous by nature. What it means is that you send a request, and then when it would be complete, we don't know about it. Okay. But by design, when a test engine runs, if the let's say you are a test one, and now it is waiting for an asynchronous request to complete. What do you do here? You typically put a wait time, a polling mechanism for this request to complete. Because there is no concept in test engines that, okay, one test is in wait mode for an asynchronous request. Let me pull this out, put it in a queue. Let me run the next test while this test waits for that request to complete. Test engines are not designed that way. They are by design synchronous in nature. Any tool which you pick up, any testing tools you are using today is by nature synchronous. Okay, that's the reality. So tell me one thing, how do you test asynchronous services when they exist today also? They are, since years we are into asynchronous, but as testers you are using synchronous test engines to test that. Isn't it fooling around? Isn't it cheating? It is. But why is this problem existing? Because we are so much caught up in buzzwords that we forgot to solve concrete core problems. People who are designing these big softwares in AI and ML, they are very well equipped to design test engines which can be asynchronous in nature, but they are not. So all of us, any company you pick up, you, me, everybody is forced to use test engines which are synchronous in nature, testing asynchronous services, and thereby the whole time advantage of it Asynchronous is for time advantage, that if there's a heavy process, meanwhile you do other things. But this time advantage is not present in our test automation because of the way test engines are designed, and you can't do anything about it, okay, unless you design one. So you see, there is a lot which has to change before you start talking big things, me, you. But those changes we are not talking about. We are caught up in buzzwords again. When agile came, it is a buzzword, and we run after that. Then lean agile came, we run after that. But agile was supposed to be lean. Then what is lean agile? So you see, getting it wrong every time, and then coining a word for it. First saying, for example, exploratory testing, and years later saying there's nothing called exploratory testing. Testing is just testing. So you see, I see all this stuff happening in testing industry so often that it is actually irritating. Okay, so please do not be caught up with these kind of noises, because this is not helping us. Look at the core tech, because any change in tech around you, the applications which you test, the way their tech stack is a concrete change, and it is going to impact the way you test. Other things, maybe one day they would come near you. They would start causing that ripple which touches you. But till that point, we need to make sure that we are dealing with the ripples which are there right with us. We are not dealing with them, and we are worrying about ripples which are like a kilometer away from us. And that's what is alarming. Okay. It is like, it doesn't fit into any frog story which I told also. Okay. So we are not ready for these tech changes. Please keep these changes on your tab, and there would be other tech. I'm not a core techie. I'm not a future talker or something, but these are changes which I observed just within a few months when I was putting this together, this presentation. So keep your tab on this. So is this the future? I think so. Since I put together this presentation, many of these changes which I had projected have already happened. Okay, and in years to come, very near future, this is going to become the reality. This is going to have a concrete impact. HTTP2 is there, already there, and more tools are actually incorporating them also. Beyond, so this is bell bottoms. So based on this, can we project a little bit into future? But the problem with projection is that it's not linear, right? We might talk something now and then it would go complete exponential from there, so we don't know. So let's see 2038 for Lady Luck. You can refer this particular link also. There is something happening on this precise date, 2038. Maybe not impacting many devices, but who knows? Maybe older systems. There is this timestamp measurement, the way it happens in software. It depends on epoch from where a difference is taken. And this day that integer limit would be crossed, and it sort of comes back to zero, and could have interesting impact. You can go through this link. So let's say 19th January 2038 at 3:14. Let's see by what happens by that time in AI. What exists already? Sometimes it amazes me that how many things already exist, and still we are talking of fifth generation of test automation, this generation and that generation. I don't know. Maybe we haven't been able to put together some of the things which already exist. Okay, so I'm not talking of future. All of this technology actually exists. NLP, natural language processing, voice communication, voice to text, text to voice, hand face gestures recognition. All this work already exists, and you know about it. Intent expression via visual models. You create a visual model, and now translating that visual model into code already exists. It has existed for maybe 2 decades or more. Okay, you don't need to code. You can just build the architecture diagram, information flow, click generate. It would generate the code for you. No AI and ML needed. This is basic algorithms. This already exists. AI to write basic code. You feed basic code and tell that this new feature is to be developed. 90-95% compilable and valid interpreted code it can be generated by AI, and this also is 3, 4, 5 years old news, not something from future, actually something from past. AI to generate basic tests, of course, given a set of functions, interfaces, APIs, generating basic tests from it. What do you do as a tester really? BVA, plus minus one, plus minus delta. ECP, taking an input field from valid and invalid ruling, generating tests, and then sending them, feeding them in all pairs or combinatorics. Is that rocket science? Yeah. Can't it be generated by code? Really? So all this already exists. It already exists. Okay. It's just the way we design the system that we are not able to utilize a simple thing like this. Software broken down into smaller manageable pieces, microservices, already done, so that each piece of the software tells that this is what I accept, this is what I give to you. These are my rules. These are the errors which I throw. All this is already done now. These are not monolithic big blocks code, so testability is on the rise. Deployment tasks with DevOps and everything already broken down. Infrastructure all available out there, platform as a service, all this as a service models are all around you, which can be automatically triggered, self-monitoring, all of this already exists. Infrastructure and then automatable tasks. All of this is already done, you see. All of these used to be somewhere impacting testers and developers to do. But all of this is already available as services to you, which are automatable. Okay. On the right side of the screen, you see code which is written by AI. There's a painting generated by AI. There's so many things, and you keep watching things around you as well. So some projections which I see, I don't see why should there be a programming language, and not just now, since years. That why somebody needs to code in Java, why somebody needs to code in Python or Ruby. Because with all these advancements, which I discussed on previous slide, which have existed since years, you just need to create a visual model, and most of the code should be generated by tools, which are already existing. Okay. Enterprise architect, these kind of tools already exist. They can generate code for you. Minor tweaks, doing here and there, optimizing, yes, that's where a human comes into picture, but not writing system.out.println, okay, or catching the exception anytime it happens in test automation, just silencing it. Those kind of shitty code we don't need to write. Okay, this can be auto generated. And then based on expressed intent, visual models, code, or test generation, these are AI tasks. Self-healing, patching, enhancements, these are AI tasks if the models are in place like that. Yeah. M2M communication protocols. Why would you design machine to machine talking language yourself? Because you would always think like human, right? You would not think like a machine. And there have been experiments already done around it where machines were able to develop a communication protocol between themselves. Okay. This experiment is also 3-4 years back. They were able to develop a protocol which was way more efficient than what we were doing for them. Yeah. H2M interface, human to machine or machine to human interfaces with gesture identification and all of this. Why should there be a keyboard? Why should there be a mouse, really? Advancements are already there, and these things are being put together. But the way we interact with machines, if I can talk to a machine, which I can do today also, right? It's not an alien tech I'm talking about. Then if I can talk to a machine to order something from Amazon today, why can't I talk to a machine to write a test for me, to write code for me? Even when my intervention is needed, why do I need to type code? I don't. So this is like a old, wheel cart in a new tech, which we are somehow fitting together in a mashup. But these things are going to go away in the tech world. For the normal humans, actually, many of those things have gone away, the way they interact. But in the tech world, we are still dealing in old ways. So these are some projections which would happen in maybe 15, 20 years time frame. Or so who would we be? So we talk of AI assistants today, right? Google Assistant, this assistant, that assistant. But I see that most of the roles of developers or testers, we are going to be assistants to AI. Because most of the work which we do is mundane. There is no intelligence involved in that. These are easily automatable tasks. So we are not really adding any value doing that. When we say human brain, sapiens, and all these big words which we use in testing conferences, if you look at your month's work also, just carefully think about it, honestly think about it. How much of that work you really needed for? Apart from the time wasting meetings and other things and tea breaks and other things, what was the real part of the work where you applied your head and it wasn't a repeated task? Think about it. Okay, so there are very less parts of our work where we really apply our brains, and there we might be needed again, but not for 90% of the work which we do. We don't add any value. It's the same work over and again. Okay, it's the same decision made over and over again. So The good news is that these roles would not be mundane. These would be really, so being assistant is not bad, because you would need to tweak the models which are auto-generated for you. And this would be intelligent work. This would require you to know the subject very, very well. That's where you're assisting. Bad news, not many roles like this left. Okay. So I would make some of these things for this slide deck would be available to you. So you can go through it. But then there are business interests involved in this. There are businesses who would find technologies costlier than humans in terms of labor cost. There would be other interests, vested interests involved in this. So some of these things might take longer time. Some of these things may not realize. That's also there. So what are the other things in AI, artificial general intelligence, singularity? Is that a possibility? I'm not the right person to comment on that. As I mentioned, this is not an AI talk. I'm actually talking of what is available and projecting based on that, not what could be available in AI in future and then projecting based on that. I'm too small a person to do that. Whatever I'm talking to you is already available. So I'm just putting together a future based on existing tech, not a future tech which would be made available. So question for you, do you see this line below? Just stare at the window for maybe a few seconds. Do you see this line? You should carefully look at it. Of course you don't, because this line doesn't exist. That developer and tester line, for good or bad, it has faded away, it's blurred. Even if the rules, they are separated, the testers are expected to be more and more technical. And that's the reality. All of us, we need to somehow digest. There's no point fighting against it. I see still like a decade back when I presented, should testers learn programming? And I said, of course we should learn programming. There were voices against it. That wasn't the time when SDET noise was that much. Okay. And I was told, this is not a new thing you're telling. Since last decade also people are telling us to learn programming. So what is new? I said, yes, that's the whole point. There's nothing new to it. The people who told you 1 decade back to learn programming were right. You should have learned 1 decade back. So at least learn now. And now with this all SDET noise, 1 decade later, there's nobody debating whether testers should learn programming or not. We have gone through a history. Okay. There were various points where somehow people try to lose common sense. Software is the closest piece of stuff for a tester, and it is developed in programming. So people who advise you to learn from a guitar, people who advise you to who learn testing from doctors, learn testing from detectives, and then they say don't learn programming because it makes you biased. It is bullshit. In plain words, I'm sorry to use this word over and again, but this, please understand that whatever these so-called experts tell to you is not truth. There are vested interests out there. So be technical. It doesn't harm you. It would always help you. And you can still be a tester along with that. You don't need to leave your profession. It would help you getting better at what you do today and make you future ready also. Okay. So should we stop being a software tester? That answer you need to find for yourselves. Things are changing fast. Things would continue to change. Some of the people have hopped roles also. They have, so people, when they jump to DevOps, they are no more testers. Okay, they might retain a tester profile, but in totality, they have actually moved out of testing. And some of the SDET roles also, if you carefully look at them, you don't really remain a tester after that. You are a tool developer or somebody else. Okay, you're not really a tester after that. So you need to ask this question for yourself without being that frog which always keep hopping from one place to other. Do you really want to be a tester? Because it is getting more and more challenging. Okay, I have found an answer for myself, probably because I've already spent 2 decades in industry, and what an old man like me would do. So I have chosen to remain a software tester and look at this journey the way it is, and trying to change whatever, trying to adapt where I can. But one thing which I can tell you is that my own skill set hasn't changed much. Okay, I am surviving in the industry with the same core skill set and improving the same core skills: programming, design, being business savvy, understanding what the other side on the table needs, being empathetic, being honest, being truthful to what my purpose is as a tester. and I'm doing fine so far. And as I told you, you, everybody is going to become obsolete one day. All frogs die. All frogs become obsolete. So I'm also going to become obsolete. But I have chosen to uh, follow this path of becoming obsolete over time by remaining as a tester rather than hopping around. Okay, and it works for me so far. Let's see how the future unfolds. You need to choose this path for yourself. That what is your path of becoming obsolete over time? How long would it take for you? How you want this journey to be? Do you want it to be pleasant? Do you want to be a copy paste of what the industry is doing? Do you always want to remain in fear of losing job? What's the journey for you? You'll need to decide for yourself. Future, whichever future you pick up, whether you be a tester, whether you don't be a tester, the future is of artists, people who learn the craft part of the job, but then they bring a certain value to the table, which is so unique to them. They bring a perspective, they bring decision making, they bring opinions. The opinions could be wrong, like my opinions could be wrong, whatever I'm saying here, but I own them. I'm ready to debate about them. And that's the value I bring to the table. So future is of artists who bring that certain, uh, you know, personality to the work which they do. Because AIs don't have personalities beyond movies, at least as of now. You can bring that personality to work. Okay. So keep this in mind. I strive to be an artist, do my work in that way. Okay. It makes my work fun as well, more likable as well. So how about you? You need to find that answer. I'm leaving you with questions. I'm not actually giving you any answers in this presentation because I have no right to do so. So leaving you with a lot of questions. And one suggestion I would give to you is that uh, stop listening to dinosaurs like me. Like in this forum also, yesterday I was discussing with Madhav that why do we keep seeing the same faces? Since like more than a decade, I go to the conferences. It's the same people like me presenting over and over again. And you see, these opinions become stale over time. These stories which we share with you, uh, over a period of time, they become obsolete. They lose their value over time. So I would encourage this forum also to bring new faces, new people as speakers. Okay, it's not about changing a speaker. It's about bringing new young speakers who have a story to tell, even if that story is about failure. It's okay. So bring those, speakers, and maybe I can also help you link with those people. This gives a new platform for them also, and as a forum, you get help better because you listen to new opinions, and uh, and listen to your common sense. You'll get the answers yourself as well, and you can always stay in touch. And I can always, we can have debate about it. So thank you so much for your time. I would conclude the presentation part of this webinar now. Open to questions. Yeah, Shruti. Uh, you're not audible.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul, for that offbeat take on the near future of testing. That was a fresh perspective on this subject. You helped us to take our view away from the distinct future to instead focus on the present. So I'm sure that the audience is now better informed of the challenges ahead and will aim for the better prepared. As a lady luck, this has been hosted Women Who Test, so we would like to think it's within us already. So I wish the audience a better luck for their career. So yeah, audience, the question, you can raise your questions, whatever you have. Uh, there's one question. As an artist, what would you say have been a aha moment?
Aha moment for me.
Yes.
So this question is by Divakar. So what is not clear to me is because I see when the word artist is used, um, I've I have been an artist. I've been a theater artist for 12 years. So, so in the presentation, I use artist more as a symbolic word. Um, so let me relate a story from my artist world itself. Okay. I was discussing this point with Madhav also yesterday. So, for example, there is a lot of noise in the in the testing industry about exploratory testing versus scripted testing. So scripted testing as a word was also coined by the same people who coined the term exploratory testing. And there is this debate that which is better or premium. And then there was, of course, a discussion around maxims that you, on one edge there is scripted testing, on one edge there is exploration, and the answer is somewhere in the middle, etc. The reason I'm relating this is that why some of my opinions are so different, right? That there is so much of conflict at times. Because I don't understand this difference. I come from theater, and in theater you always have a script, mostly have a script. So you have a stage act, you start with a script, but that script is not the play. You get to the stage, you start performing it. You look at the audience, the way they are reacting, which joke works, which expression works, which expression doesn't work. So you amp up what works, you cut down on what doesn't work. So although the script is constant, the play is never constant, never. Okay, so that aha moment, I'll tell you about theater. So I told the story to Madhav also yesterday. So there was this play which we were doing. It's titled Girgit. Girgit means chameleon. That reptile which changes the colors, right? So the story was about a dog. Whenever there is a question about dog's identity, and the identity comes out to be he's just another dog, the attitude of people changes. And then when the dog is found to be belonging to, let's say, DSP in the city or some big shot in the city, and suddenly people become very, very, very loving towards the dog and feed him nuts. And this keeps changing throughout the play. Every 5 minutes it changes, and so this was the whole point, that how people change their colors, and hence the title gave it. So this play was supposed to conclude at 25th minute, and at 23rd minute there is a conclusion where there is some servant of some big Seth who has to say that yes, ye Seth ji ka kutta hai. This is Seth ji's dog, and he comes to the stage and says, "This is not Seth ji's dog," right? And now you need to improvise that the damn play was about to conclude, and this guy has just changed the way, right? The path. So I was a police guy in that play, and I thrashed that person on stage because it was a genuine anger as well that we are going to be disqualified. So I grabbed that person from collar, and I had the police stick in my hand. I said, "Look carefully and tell me whose dog this is." And he said, "Oh, this is HC's dog. This is HC's dog." So you see, this scripting and exploration, or improvisation as we call in theater, this goes hands in hand, or hand in hand. There's no change. We don't differentiate in this. So when I come in testing world and suddenly I see a divide, that we are talking of formal test design versus exploratory testing, this was hurtful. That how come this divide exists? There is no divide. You should not know where the scripting ends and the exploration starts, and the exploration ends and scripting starts, right? It should go hand in hand. And this applies to many of the things which has happened in testing. And I was looking at all these experts fighting for no reason, that this time of fighting you should contribute better and you should speak truth rather than playing marketing gimmicks. Okay, so that is the theme of this talk. Also, it's a tech talk, but my simple message is that please look at the reality. There are things to be afraid of, but not the things you are being afraid of. Okay, AI and ML, these are like big things. They would come your way, and when they come to your door and knock your door, you would know. But till that point, there are so many things in the house. Our house is scattered right now. Okay, there is dirt on the floor, clothes are scattered all around. So first, let's organize our home better, so that, so as women you would understand, better. This is women who test problem. That the first step to welcome a guest, AI and ML, is to organize your home. First,
Yes.
organize your home. Learn equivalence class partitioning, decision trees, these basics first better, so that you are able to welcome the guest. Otherwise, we are doing poor testing with basic software, and then we will do poorer testing with AI-enabled software. Doesn't make sense.
Yes, exactly. Okay, yeah. So any other questions from audience? Your journey is interesting, Rahul. So yeah, we'll give a minute for audience if anyone has any questions. So yeah, audience, in case if you have any questions that has to be passed on to Rahul, you can ping us on the Slack channel as well, or you can drop me an email. So yeah, we'll forward the questions to Rahul. Yeah. Thank you, Rahul, once again for your time. It was a wonderful and thought-provoking talk. Thank you so much for your time.